Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and what a massive weekend it was, Hex.
Oh, absolutely. We've been up on the Gold Coast for a games expo and we managed to meet one or two of you.
As this banner clearly shows.
Yes, thank you so much to everyone who dropped by. It was great meeting all of you. And we took Goose Long, and all of that will be up later in the show.
Yes, including two massive games, such as Forza Motorsport 4. And...
Wait for it. The thrill of being one of the coolest superheroes around, Batman in Arkham City.
That's it. I'm gonna...
Hex, I think you'll find that I'm Batman.
It's gonna be a long night. But before all that, can you guess the game for this week?
This is Channel 7 News.
It appears our city is under attack. At 5 this morning, an explosion ripped through Grand Plaza Station. Hundreds of early morning commuters and station staff are reportedly dead, and many more are wounded.
News time.
My new gaming blanket.
Good game.
Robert Daly, the head of Deadliest Warrior and Zumba fitness studio Pipeworks, has resigned after misrepresenting himself as a Green Beret.
A former Green Beret, Robert Daly has designed over 30 military-based video games.
Daly has starred in the TV show Deadliest Warrior, claiming he had served as a member of the prestigious Special Forces group. While Daly did serve alongside the Green Berets as an intelligence officer, it has come to light that he had never qualified as an actual Green Beret. Daly issued an apology for the misrepresentation, and as well as stepping down as studio head, he will no longer appear in the TV series. 16 actors were injured during filming of the latest Resident Evil movie when a platform they were standing on moved unexpectedly. Paramedics at the scene had difficulties assessing the injuries due to the actors being in full zombie costume and makeup, but luckily no one suffered life-threatening injuries or complete zombification. As embattled LA Noire developer Team Bondi faces liquidation, it has been revealed that staff are still owed over $1 million in unpaid salaries.
How can you be so heartless, throwing around accusations at a time like this?
Studio head Brendan McNamara has the biggest claim of nearly $150,000 in salary still owed to him, with other staff owed between $1.5 to $100,000. Bond University's Digital Australia 2012 report, a random survey of more than 1,200 Australian households, has revealed some interesting statistics about gamers.
In 2012, the average gamer is 32 years of age. That's up 2 years from 2008-9. The proportion of females playing is 47%, so we're almost at parity with girls and women playing games as well. And 92% of Australian households now have a device for playing games, but that includes mobile phones. And of course it should, because we're all playing on our phones.
The report also revealed that Australians still prefer to buy their games in shops, and that the Australian games industry will likely be worth $2.5 billion by 2015.
Good game.
Forza Motorsport 4 is a game on a mission. It wants to turn everyone into a V8-loving petrol head. It wants you to feel the soul and the passion behind the metal and the rubber, but most of all, it wants to be the best racing game in the world!
Now, we don't usually harp on about the graphics, but I mean, just look at it. The level of detail is astonishing. Every millimeter of every car has been built with such precision. Everything just looks spot on. The plastics, the leather, the carbon fiber. But what really makes it pop is the new image-based lighting, which is a fancy way of saying that the world perfectly reflects off every surface. It can be quite hypnotizing watching the reflections bend around the curves of your cars.
And for those of you who get excited about engine bays and all those little details, there's a new Auto Vista mode. It's a virtual showroom with 20-odd cars you can gawk at and explore. Also, each one has a lengthy tour from Jeremy Clarkson of Top Gear fame, delivered in his usual brutally honest fashion.
It was a very bad car, and it was ugly.
You can play Auto Vista entirely with Kinect, but to be honest, it's a bit annoying playing it this way. I mean, you just end up fighting with the Kinect and moving around when you're trying to stand still, so I just used a controller and it worked much better.
There are some other Kinect options too. There's a quick play mode where you steer the car with just your hands while it brakes and accelerates for you. I think it works better than Kinect Joyride, you remember? Yeah. But it's more for the casual players, and it's good they're catered for. And there's head tracking too, so you can look into corners with just a small lean or turn of your head. It's a cool idea, and it works as advertised, but you'll turn it off pretty quickly. It just ends up being more distracting and nauseating than helpful.
So all in all, the Kinect editions are pretty forgettable. However, we are happy to confirm that Forza 4 does support voice commands for Australians, and they're actually useful. If you're just about to start a race, but you want to apply some upgrades, then there's no more going back through menus like some button-pressing chump. You just say,
Xbox upgrade.
and you're sent straight back to the upgrades menu, and then when you're done, you just say,
Xbox next race.
and then you're back to where you were. It's pretty cool.
Let's talk about the racing now, and fans of Forza 3 will notice a huge improvement in the handling. There's a whole new tyre model, among other subtle tweaks, which have made a big difference. Steering is more responsive, there's a better sense of grip, and every car just feels a lot livelier and more true to life than ever before. And they've upped the number of cars from 12 to 16, both online and offline.
We play this mostly with a controller, but we did try out our old 360 wheel. It's a bit of a cruddy wheel, so the force feedback was hard to judge, but there was a good one-to-one translation of our steering, I thought.
Yeah, that wheel's really dirty. The career has been given an overhaul as well. The boring old calendar is gone, and in its place is the snazzy world tour, which zooms around the globe for each event. But my favourite part is they've got rid of all those white menus. I know it sounds silly, but that stopped me playing the game. At 3 AM when these eyes are tired, I don't need blinding white menus in my eyes. I'm probably the only one, but still, I'm glad they're gone. But what I really like is that every event lets you choose from a few possible races that change depending on which car you're in. It means if you find a few cars that you really love, you can just stick with those throughout the whole campaign, or you can just try a different car every race. It's up to you.
And there's a few new event types to keep things interesting. There's autocross, where you slalom through checkpoints, track days, which put you against a single opponent on a track littered with slower cars, as well as Top Gear bowling, where you need to reach a certain score by knocking down huge bowling pins.
And there's hundreds of cars to choose from with a little bit of something for everyone. Unless you like Porsches, because EA wouldn't let them use the license. But what Aussies will be excited about is the 10 V8 supercars. Sadly, there's no Bathurst track to race them on, but most of the old tracks have returned.
One of the best new additions is the Rivals mode. It's basically an offline multiplayer mode where you face off against other players' ghosts and try to best their times.
With each event, you're automatically assigned the ghost of the worst player, and they're usually easy to beat. But the challenge comes from the fact that you're free to choose anyone from the leaderboard to be your rival, and the higher up the board they are, the bigger the bounty for beating them. It's always tricky trying to guess how far up the board you can get, but it doesn't hurt to go for the top one because you still get XP and credits, you just don't get the bounty. Oh, it's such a good system.
Yeah, and I have to say, I really like that you have to race a clean lap to be at the top of the board. Any lap where you've come off the track, used a rewind, or hit something will label your lap as dirty. And even if your dirty lap is the fastest lap in the world, the slowest clean lap will still be counted above it. Also, you can set up and join online car clubs now. They're basically just clans, but you can share any of your cars with your club, so it's a great way to get access to cars you haven't got. And for those of you interested in joining Team Good Game, the tag is GGAU.
But we should wrap this up, Hex. We haven't even mentioned stuff like the online auction house or the painting and all the upgrading, and I know that's stuff that people really get into and can spend quite a lot of time in there, but it's all as good as ever. I was a little sad there's no nighttime races or weather effects, but even so, this is one of the greatest racing games I have ever played. I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chicken.
Yeah, and it's huge too, isn't it? I mean, even after sinking 20 odd hours into this, the stat screen still says we've only completed about 5% of it. But it's just a beautiful game that's presented perfectly, and I think even if you're not the biggest petrol head, it's hard not to let some of that passion for racing and cars rub off on you a little bit, so I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
We're told to think of economy and the environment, not excitement and enjoyment.
So whenever you're moving stuff on a screen for the first time, it's like, holy cow, this is magic, right? But in terms of beyond that, I think it was a game called, Adventure for the Atari back in 1978. And I'm not that old, but I was at least around for, and all it was, but it was really the first adventure game. It precedes Zelda, it precedes Resident Evil. It really was the first time you could pick up and go into a world. Me and my brother and his friend, we stayed up all night in front of the TV, just lost in this world where all you are is a little dot, and the dragons literally look like pixelated ducks. I mean, it was absurd to look back at it now, but that game showed me that interactive entertainment really was a passageway into not literally, that's bizarre, but a passageway into almost literally into other worlds. And that was just a revelation to me.
Alright guys, so we're here on the Gold Coast for Australia's newest game expo. What's the game plan? Badger?
I have to check out Saints Row 3, and then I've got to find my bad company 2 partner Apex, so we've got a comp this afternoon.
Sounds good. Hex?
Well, guys, you know I've got to check out Skyrim, but I also saw Lord of the Rings 4 in the north over there, and I have to check that out as well.
Yeah, what about you, Goose?
Well, I was thinking we could start with the whole... Cool, guys. Unlike other big expos like E3, which are held exclusively for the press, here on the Gold Coast, the doors are open for everyone to come in and get their hands on some of the latest games and tech. What do you guys think of the expo so far?
I think it's pretty awesome, actually. It's just good to see gaming come to Queensland, firstly, because I know it's usually down south, so it's really good for us to have it over here. It's awesome.
I did expect a few more things, but otherwise it's really good, like the amount of ranges of games and everything that's being announced today. It's really cool.
As 2011 draws to a close, gamers are preparing for a feast of AAA titles, and they're willing to line up for hours just to get a glimpse. Have you guys had to wait in any big lines?
Yeah, Battlefield 2 is kind of long, but it's definitely worth the wait.
How long do you think you guys are going to be waiting for?
Probably about an hour.
It's a long wait.
It's a long wait.
But it's worth it?
Definitely.
Yeah. What's the longest you've waited so far?
I haven't really waited for VIP, just straight entry.
We were hoping that the Halo was going to be open to everyone, but it's VIP only, so.
What would you improve on for maybe another expo?
I reckon they should can the VIP thing and let everybody play everything. That'd be awesome.
Portable gaming while you're in line.
That's not a bad idea.
That's a good idea, actually.
Because the lines are pretty epic.
Yeah.
Probably more openness and probably more stands, I'd like. I guess they're playing it safe at the moment, but it's been good so far.
A bigger venue, maybe? Yeah, possibly more bigger. Like I lined up for 3 hours for Battlefield. So yeah, probably bigger.
We got you back. Oh, there he is. Spot. Oh, spot's not working. Over here. Yeah, if you need ammo, Apex, I've totally just unlocked it, so... In fairness, the tank's pretty OP.
Expos like this aren't just about the games. It's also a great chance for gamers to meet up, dress up, and share their love for all things gaming. So I almost didn't spot these guys coming through, heading straight for the Modern Warfare tent. Guys, what have you been playing today?
We played some Tekken and
Modern Warfare 3.
Yeah.
Lots of Modern Warfare?
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to play Battlefield? Which one? You're obviously big Modern Warfare fans.
Modern Warfare over Battlefield. I like the fast-paced gameplay more than everyone camping.
So guys, guys, what do you think? Has it been any fun?
Yeah, it's been excellent.
Yeah.
There's loads of stuff to do. There's plenty of walking around to do. So our back hurts.
And what would you recommend to anyone who's thinking about dressing up? I've seen some guys in some really hefty outfits. They didn't look like they could last the whole day. What would be your advice to anyone thinking about doing the same?
An air conditioning system in there. Yeah, it's called fans in everywhere, every part of your body, or comfortable clothing.
Your friend's been pretty quiet over there. I'm just guessing that could be because he's got a box on his head, but...
Yeah, no, I'm just enjoying the arena, everything. It's all going good.
We're ready to go? Yeah. Oh yeah, high energy, come on guys! Great work, keep going! Nice! Good work! Oh yeah, Bajo! Oh, and Hex is on the ground. No, oh, these two! Yeah! Great work, guys. Let's put it together for him. Bajo, Hex, and Goose.
Well, what a huge day, guys. What do we all think?
I can't believe all the fans that came to visit us at the Good Game signing desk. We weren't expecting that many people. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was so good to see you. Thanks for coming. And also, the Good Game team won the Battlefield Bad Company 2 comp, even though I wasn't in the final round, but we still won.
Nice. And it's fantastic to have an expo like this right here in Australia. So until next year, guys, back to the studio.
Good game.
Dying wasn't scary.
Take back the DVDs and get a freaking job, Rick.
I'm leaving, Rick. All you do is smoke bongs and play GoldenEye.
Yeah, eat it. Hey, who's your job?
You're not a loser, Rick, but you've got to believe that.
But I didn't, and that was scary.
You're missing a disc here, mate.
Stay calm and everyone follow me.
But life has a way of changing your mind. Tell Gloria I love her. Hey, over here, asshole! Come and get me!
I love you, Rick.
Let me comfort you.
Good game.
If you know me at all, you'll know I'm quite the Batman fan. And Hex, I don't think there's even a word or a collection of words I could string together to describe the joy I felt when taking to the skies in Batman Arkham City.
You don't want to do this, killer.
Now, this review could have been quite spoilerific, but we've been very careful to make sure that this review will not spoil your experience. In fact, we can't even show you the best bits of the game. Arkham City is a fanboy's dream come true, isn't it, Bajo? Grappling around a dark, foreboding city, surveying your enemies from a distance, gliding down for an ambush.
So good. You know, we had a taste of excellent Batman gameplay in Arkham Asylum, but even though that game is excellent, you still felt trapped on that island, and all I wanted to do, Hex, was get off that island and fly around and explore. Now, with Batman's powerful theme music ebbing and flowing alongside your actions, that dream has been realized.
Hugo Strange, one of Batman's earliest foes, has turned a large section of the city into a giant prison full of gangs and thugs, political prisoners, and some of Gotham's worst villains.
And when it comes to comic book villains, Batman's universe has some of the best, if not the best.
Fear. That's how we get respect. Are you gonna be a good boy and give up nicely?
Yeah, and they don't pull any punches either. This is a mature, dark game.
Yes, but that's all we will say about the story. The way that you're pulled through this game is seamless, and that's core to its design. From the way you're pulled from the open world into the small contained areas, to the combat animations, which are more fluid than ever, and those little camera shifts that make everything feel so cinematic, and it's just so pretty and detailed. The open world nature of this game, it gives you the choice about doing side missions when and wherever you want, but not only that, it gives you an environment to show off what Batman does best. It feels like this is the game that Rocksteady Studios always wanted to make. They got the basics down with Arkham Asylum, then they just fleshed and expanded upon everything else.
Yeah, not only that, but it feels like it's been written and directed from a fan's heart, with the usual high standard of voice acting from Kevin Conroy as Batman.
Now, I'm taking you down too. Ooh.
and a particularly exceptional performance from Mark Hamill as the Joker.
Let's see. There was an asylum, some monsters, and oh, that's right. You left me to die.
Ultimately, this is a story about Batman and the Joker, who forever dance around each other, and at times Batman even has to side with some of the other villains, which you can tell he doesn't like doing.
You don't look well. If you're gone, what will happen to Nora?
Leave my wife out of this, Batman. Don't let this situation fool you. We are not friends.
And it's good to see Mr. Freeze get a run too. He's such an underappreciated character, just so full of pain and remorse and such interesting motivations. And we need to do everything we can to forget about what Arnold Schwarzenegger did to him. And that Mr. Freeze battle is the best one in the whole game, I think, or at least it's my favorite, because you can't trick Mr. Freeze twice, so it makes you use all your gadgets and just try every attack you possibly can to take him down.
You can rush through the main story in under 13 hours, but you really should try to do all the side quests first before you finish it off, especially if you play on hard, because you'll need the XP.
Yeah, hard is brutal, much harder than Arkham Asylum. I think it's a bit too hard, actually. I didn't last very long with it before going back to normal.
Yeah, it's a shame there couldn't be something in between at least. The first thing you should do is the first lot of augmented reality missions, which get you used to dive bombing to pick up greater height. They also unlock a boost to your grapple, which is imperative to getting a good free flow parkour going. I mean, they made grappling so much fun, Barjo. I just loved it.
Me too, and the sound of that grapple, you know, those camera angles. The grapple is so important to this game because not only is it how Batman zips out of danger, but it also moves him to the next objective in a real character-driven way. It launches you into your glide, which gives you this overpowering sense of being a true predator as you look at the scene below you and go, who's next?
Yeah, and it almost always knows where you want to go as well. I don't think we'll spoil any more of the side missions for you, but there is a little bit more scientific detectiving than there was in the last game.
Get it analyzed and start searching the hospitals and emergency rooms.
Using science!
Science!
The only way I'm gonna find that assassin is to locate more evidence.
We should talk about all the Riddler trophies though, Barjo, because they're not just collectibles this time around. Most of them have a tough puzzle surrounding them that are quite hard. Riddler has a bunch of hostages scattered around in elaborate traps, and as you try to decode his riddles, you'll also try to save them. We haven't finished all of these, but we're really enjoying them so far.
Let's talk about the combat though. It's certainly unique, and on normal difficulty, it's just all about making Batman look cool. You'll be watching for counters and mixing things up with a couple of combos and quick-fire gadgets. Getting multipliers up will perform special moves which are unlocked as you level up, along with the gadgets and a few suit upgrades. It takes skill and patience to keep your combo going. One false move or one air punch and it will break. You're often left wide open for attack after that too. I think it's worth turning off the hints too, because they clutter up the screen a little bit. On the surface, just mashing X and Y may seem a bit shallow, but the interesting part of this combat, I think, is looking for those moments when to take down an enemy that's already on ground and taking those opportunities.
Yeah, and you really kick yourself when you screw up too. I mean, it's just all so fluid how it all connects together, especially when you take down two goons at once. Yet, somehow, even with all these gadgets, Batman isn't overpowered because really just a few bullets and he's down. You've got your standard batarangs, a remote electric pulse which sends enemies shooting and swinging. There's a remote controlled batarang which is mostly for puzzles. Your grapple claw is great for disarming enemies, and there's a smoke pellet to get out of danger.
Oh, hold on.
I like the ice grenade the most, Barjo, because you can use it to incapacitate enemies for a long period of time, and there are even more too.
No shark repellent though. Even though many of the gadgets have a quick fire option, I was struggling with the controls now and then, Hex. In fact, even towards the end of the game, I still accidentally pulled out my hacking device in the middle of battle, which isn't very Batman-like. Should have been able to cancel that animation in particular a little quicker, I think.
It's not that simple.
You spend much of the game in detective mode, and that's to identify the biggest threats. Some goons are armoured, some have guns, others have knives which are very nasty and hard to avoid in combat. At times you'll see a goon lit in green, which is an option for interrogation that leads to Riddler clues and XP. And it's a nice spanner in the works trying to keep the green goon busy while you take out his friends first. This is a masterful stealth action game with just the right amount of punishment and reward.
I like that when you've entered an area that you might have been in before, they always change up the combat somehow by giving enemies maybe sensor disruptors or thermal vision.
Anyone wearing them will be able to spot me hiding up in the darkness.
Each game comes with Catwoman DLC code, which means if you pick this game up secondhand, you're gonna have to buy it, which is a clever ploy to fight that secondhand market. I really love these Catwoman missions though, Barjo. There's only a few of them, but they're woven into the story really well, and and she just fights like Catwoman should.
Yeah, and she's a bit like Spider-Man the way she climbs about the place. She doesn't have as many gadgets as Batman. She has caltrops to drop, which sends enemies scrambling, and the ball on a string bolas thing that she throws. Her whip also helps her in combat, but is also useful for leaping about the city.
Yeah, there are some really welcome moments in her short but memorable campaign. I have to say though, Badge, from the way this game was advertised, I really thought that Catwoman was going to be a bigger part of it, so I was a little bit disappointed when I found out she wasn't.
Well, you know, I liked that they brought a lot of the original cast from Arkham Asylum back in, but they didn't make you repeat any fights or anything like that. And I think that's really core to this game too. There's so many fights and yet very little repetition. And this isn't a spoiler because it's already been announced in trailers and that sort of thing, but I was so happy to see Grundy in this game. He's one of my favorite DC villains. I thought they could have done a little more to explain the connection with Batman and these villains, and maybe a bit more on their backstory though. They have character bios, but I thought they could have, you know, maybe some flashback missions or some flashback cutscenes, but perhaps I'm being greedy. I'm definitely being greedy when I think that they should have absolutely had Wayne Manor and the Batcave and a Batmobile ride in there. That would have been so good, but sadly no. I just want to meet Alfred and chill out with him, but
Leaves room for sequels.
yeah.
But, you know, everything has been made bigger, smoother, slicker, there's very little loading, and in general you'll find it hard to fault this game and you'll be left wanting more. You can go back and complete the side missions after you finish the main story, and there's a bunch of ranked challenge rooms and leaderboards too.
You're mine. All of you.
Plus, you can start the whole thing again with all your gadgets and no counter indicators in a much harder game, and this was surprisingly fun. I mean, it's such a big game with big love for the Dark Knight, so for me, it's an easy 10 out of 10.
Yeah, what a game, and what an ending. And I think Rocksteady have done a good job with so many characters and still pulling off a good, strong story. The most impressive thing, I think, is that it pushes on Batman's pain points, you know, where violence is occurring and he's helpless to stop with them, and you just find yourself siding with that anguish that he's going through. It's just, it's so tasty. It's impressive on every level. I'm giving it 10 out of 10 rubber chickens.
You know what that means?
Double 10 balloons.
Double 10 balloons!
Yay! Double 10 balloons.
Magic.
We splurged this time, we got extras.
If you hear anyone coming, hide. I'll be back.
Good game.
So did you guess the game for this week? It was Urban Chaos Riot Response for the Xbox and PS2 from 2006. A decent action game about being a heroic riot cop in a big bad city and doing your best to keep the peace. It was also developed by Rocksteady Studios, the guys who brought us Batmans.
Well, we're totally out of time for tonight, but next week on the show we'll save or slaughter a magical kingdom or two in Might and Magic Heroes 6.
We'll also take a look at the remastered versions of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, and maybe some more. Plus, Goose will bring you that story on id Software, the wizards of the first-person shooter.
Thanks for live tweeting along with us, and don't forget to drop by the forums and the Facebook page to leave your comments and thoughts about the show. Till next time, gamers, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Batman out.
Bajo, you're not Batman.
Hello.